Welcome to the rabbit hole that is reality, where we aim to engage, to inform and to inspire, with social commentary and topical talk on the week's goings on, which really should have us looking and asking questions, as well as looking at discoveries, mysteries and much more. Find us on rabbithole.reality.co.uk, where you can listen to every episode that has been produced so far, and listen to the live premiere broadcast every Thursday on the UK Collapse Radio Network on ukcollapseradio.com. A big thank you for taking the time to join us here tonight. So let's find out what we've got coming up in today's show. Actually, first of all, I want to give a big thank out to the donations and support that has been sent our way over the last couple of weeks. Since we sent a request out that we're looking to buy a lighting rig here and a green screen, guess what? We've actually now achieved all the necessary funds to buy and purchase aforementioned items. That's right, so thank you very much for getting involved and helping us get something off the ground and to find it and make it something tangible. So we're still aiming for around episode 20 when we will start to incorporate more and more video elements. So if you were to watch the YouTube broadcast, for instance, which we do have a YouTube live broadcast account now, although there is also potential for the likes of Livestream, Ustream, Google Hangouts and so on, which are becoming more and more popular with a lot of more broadcasters out there. Why be left behind? Why not get involved as well and raise awareness at the same time with a new and ever expanding audience? With the aim being to include, as we said, more video elements into the broadcast to encourage, a visual element as well. Because we can say this stuff, but it'd be better to show you, right? Exactly. That's exactly how we think, and that's how we believe we should be evolving as a show. So that's going to be the direction that we're going to be heading in. So thank you once again for the donations that you've sent our way to make that vision and that voyage possible. But the inspiration comes from the likes of the Joe Rogan Experience, Young Turks, guys like Philip DeFranco, Lee Camp, and Peter Joseph. So the key version, the main version, will in fact always be the audio. So for instance, on the Joe Rogan Experience, and even the Young Turks, although it's a video set, it's actually the audio is the main thread of the show. That's what you listen to. Most people are commuters, most people are those who've got a couple of hours spare in the evening, and those who are curious about the topics that you're talking about. So the idea is you can watch live on a webcam, you can be involved and send messages and that kind of stuff, while the show's happening. But also watch a video version of the show where the pictures and the videos that are being spoken about in the show, the references and stuff, can be shown on screen. Having effectively a mobile lighting rig set and sound recording equipment, what's really cool about that is you can take it on the road. You can go to a venue, go to a location, and actually have a live interview with somebody with a proper set instantly there. You can literally flat pack it down, pop it out, jobs are good, and you can have professional sound with professional quality lighting and professional quality production. So not only is there the benefit of of a fun studio setup, there's the concept of taking it mobile and having it as an interview set, but also there's other projects that I'm involved with myself, with video editing, video production, that will also benefit from this too. So it's a win-win all round. So let's give a rundown of what we got coming up in the show tonight. This is a conversation I can only imagine that happened. We're the UK government's national grid. It's come to our attention that 6 corporations are sponsoring us, not to stop them raising the price of energy, which is of course at the cheapest wholesale price ever. And today, many are without power due to an alleged energy shortfall. However, here's £5 million to keep it that way. This is a conversation I can only imagine took place. And why am I saying this? It's because renewable energy wind farms were paid to keep their turbines off and not gather energy at the windiest time in 50 years. Also, Justice Secretary Chris Grayling says we have to curtail the role of the court in the UK and we have to replace the Human Rights Act, and in the year 2014 it will happen. Being homeless, that's just the way God works. And sign your name, but don't give away your rights or assume a liability. We inform you how. Dolphins like to get high. And where does trust come from? How do organisations, corporations and governments find out how much the people trust them? We guide you down a rabbit hole on how to find that information out yourself. Interesting stuff indeed. And as it is now 2014, by the time this airs that you're listening to this, we look back at Isaac Asimov's predictions for 2014, which he envisioned in 1964. We're of course 50 years on, let's see how many of those visions came true. And then we delve into the weird and strange but true. This is the rabbit hole that is reality, episode 17. It's quite likely if you've been outside any time in the last week or so, You all know how blustery that wind has actually been. It's been pretty crazy. In fact, in some areas it was reported to be over 100 miles per hour, something that has been unheard of in the UK for quite some period of time. But wind farms were paid £5 million to turn off their turbines, as millions of homes were left without power. Can you believe that really happened? Well, in fact, it did happen. This is Christmas Eve. In fact, the National Grid handed wind farm companies £1.2 million on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day alone, just to turn their turbines off, just at the same time as thousands of homes were left without power. Yeah, this comes to us as a story from the Scottish political editor of The Telegraph, who published this story out there. There's a few facts that I certainly want to be going over today. Wind company farms are paid £5 million to switch off their turbines, or storm has lashed the UK. It's crazy, isn't it, to think £4.8 million was actually paid out. Let's look at this. On December 15th, it says that there was more money handed over for the whole compared to 2012. This total included £1.2 million on the first and most recent storm on December 19th, £800,000 on Christmas Eve, £400,000 on Christmas Day, and £300,000 last Friday. But so, okay, you got an energy shortfall happening in the UK. You have homes that are going through brownouts that we've had warnings for months. And then, when it actually comes to the case, our best renewable resource energy that we have in the UK, which is our wind power, is shut off to not generate power to pay for those homes. Does that even compute? How does that not fit together? You almost might think this might be a story reported by The Onion, but it's not. It's absolutely true. This really happened. It was reported on Boxing Day also that constraint payments of £30.4 million had actually been paid out over the course of 2013, compared to the £5 million from the year before in 2012. So they've received £30 million over the course of 2013 as a whole to keep the energy renewables turned off. I mean, and then they say, "Oh, these renewables, they're not reliable, they're not." It just doesn't compute in any way, shape or form. You've even got like anti-wind farm campaigners. You got that was that guy. What was his name? He's a Tory MP, farm critic. Murdo Fraser, that was his name. And he said families were even struggling with overstretched household bills over Christmas time, ever-increasing energy bills, and you're horrified to see that companies are literally wasting vast sums of money that are being paid to these wind farm companies, for doing nothing. There was figures that have been revealed by the Renewable Energy Foundation, which is a charity. The first bouts of storm saw energy companies paid £653,272 on December 18th, £1.2 million on December the 19th to switch off their turbines at 34 separate wind farms. A further £113,812 was paid out on December 21st. A further £248,399 for the following day. And payments then sparked on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, what we just spoke about. The mind that just boggles. I mean, even Renewable UK, that represents the wind farm companies, of course they do, they said December had been a record-breaking period of generating energy by wind. In fact, they've actually gained more electricity than we've gained over the entire year. More than 200 million megawatt hours have been generated through December alone. So put the maths together, these just don't fit together, do they? But the government just hands out taxpayer-earned money and taxpayer-paid into the government money to pay those companies to turn off their renewable sources. And then complain that renewables are terrible and not reliable enough. Just bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. Mind boggles. Now this is a name. Now this is a name that keeps popping up suddenly in conversations and circles quite frequently now. This is, as he calls himself, the Justice Secretary, Chris Grayling. He wants to pull out of the European Convention of Human Rights. And it says 2014 will be the year that this actually happens. He was speaking on the Radio 4 Today show just this past week about this. And he says that it is their intention to go into the next election with a clear plan of change. And so the removal of the Human Rights Act is one of those issues, and one of those acts that will change. I find that almost deplorable in every sense of the word. But you have to wonder why they're doing it. In fact, it's because the UK people are the ones saying it needs to change. Now, whether this be by education or planning, doesn't matter. The question is, why are they choosing to do this? Why are they saying that the Human Rights Act needs to change? It actually has something quite important to do with Brussels and immigration, in fact, is the key reasons why they are saying this. A lot of the people in the UK are agreeing with this. And so let's have a look at the facts. So what's happening is, in the UK we have our courts and so on, we have our High Court Justice and so on. But whatever choices we make here, they can be overridden by the Supreme Court of Human Rights over in Europe. And we know this has given a lot of loopholes to criminals and to organisations that have been operating here. That is deplorable, because they have the Human Rights Act. We've seen many of these stories certainly over the last few years, and immigration is now one of those topics that is also part of this conversation. They want to put a cap on the amount of people coming into the UK. The European Human Rights Act and the European Court of Human Rights says, no, you can't. So one of the options they're looking at is to leave the Convention of Human Rights, but it's not the only option that they are considering, they say, and they're bringing plans forward over the next few weeks to set out clearly what we will do and how we will do it. And that's quoted from Chris Grayling being on the show. Now they're going to create a draft bill that will set out precisely the legal change they wish to take. Now I think we really have to look at this importantly, because there's a lot of other things that could change. If you delete the Human Rights Act, what other rights will it actually remove from people? We don't know. That's why we need to know. And that's why it's important to know this. There really needs to be a sensible balance being struck between rights and responsibilities as far as I'm concerned. And I think that rights and responsibilities, not just in law, but does exist in the original convention, I understand that. But, to take away the Human Rights Act, what will we lose if it's to be rewritten? This is why everybody, in any sense, needs to be looking at this stuff, going on the government's website, seeing this text, seeing this documents of their drafts, of their bills, and what they're proposing to actually happen. Because when they bring in something new in, be aware of what you lose. With more and more people now on the streets of the UK, just looking at my own situation across the city of Nottingham, across the city I find there's more homeless people begging than ever. Although there was a story in Nottingham's Evening Post just a week ago where police were issuing a warning to Christmas shoppers, in fact, to avoid aggressive beggars who were operating in the city centre. In fact, one of the beggars boasted to be making over £700 a week, and of the 10 that it spoke about, 8 were not even homeless. Also, it talks of beggars who are illegally posing with big issue magazines. They're posing as big issue sellers who obviously are working their day. They are working from 10 to 6 every single day. Now, police have issued a warning after frequently having to deal with 10 of the hardcore aggressive beggars, it says here. Officers have been regularly speaking to him and have to move them on, and he has been arrested for fraud repeatedly. So there's this angle here that homeless people across the city aren't really homeless at all. There's this story here where you have false beggars acting like beggars, earning lots and lots of money. The truth is, most people who actually are homeless aren't beggars at all, they just choose not to be. Framework's outreach team, Jason Marriott, and a lady I spoke to just a couple of weeks ago in my store, in fact, she was saying how not everyone begs on the streets is rough, and not everyone who sleeps rough begs. In fact, the majority do not. And we're certainly finding councils are using every bylaw possible to kick out the homeless, the undesirables, and even the soup kitchens shutting them down. In New York, their Mayor Michael Bloomberg, is a billionaire. He's been a target of some controversy over the last couple of weeks in regards to the homelessness situation. The New York Times has basically been doing a series following a homeless family struggling to survive in New York City. Now, Mayor Bloomberg actually was specifically targeted in the articles, so it was it's his policies that have actually kept them in that situation. Now, it claims that 11-year-old Dasani, who's the key character in the piece. Now, I had a read of this, and it's a really good piece. It's a really good piece of journalism. It's actually good to see that. Bloomberg says that the kid has been dealt a bad hand. I don't know why. It's just the way God works. Now, arguably, it's his own policies that are actually keeping him in that situation. Now, Bloomberg here says he cites the city's policies for subsidised healthcare, job training, and shelter counselling. If you're homeless and you're poor, you're better off being off in New York City than anywhere else. New York Times then says explicitly that Bloomberg's homelessness policies are a direct result of Dasani's destitute. The Bloomberg administration adopted sweeping new policies intended to push the homeless to be more self-reliant, the Times' Andrea Elliott wrote. Now, they would no longer get access to public housing or even any other program, but they would in fact receive short-term help with the rent, very short-term in fact, just 2 months worth. As a result, dishonest families and thousands of others like her are unable to escape the shelter system that has now in the US has swelled by 60% during the last 4 years alone, despite a vow to reduce the city's homeless population by 2/3. But again, we've seen the situation, it's the economy, it's the situations that financially are holding them back. Like George Collins says, if there was money in helping the homeless, every company worth a dime will be trying out there to help them. That's not the case. The homelessness do not generate any money. Therefore, there's no real interest in trying to help these people out of the situation. It's just a kind of a public thing that we should be doing. Not that we need to get these people out of it. You think of all the countless, houses that have gone through foreclosure or have their mortgages, and the bank has taken it back to them. Yeah, these could certainly support homelessness families. There's a story I saw in the Sun a couple of days ago that it was a Romani lady. She was a gypsy. She said she's moved into this house that it was a 3-bedroom house, and she found out that she'd lived there for about a year or so. She had all the mod cons, etc. Everything's paid for, the rent's paid for. She never worked a day in her life, and she found out that the former owner of the house, or the former tenant of the house, died in the kitchen, and therefore it's the government's responsibility to give her a brand new house because it's against their belief structure that someone should live in the same house where someone has died. And what they would traditionally do was to burn the caravan that they were in. So they need the council to immediately give them a new house, or they will take them to the European Court of Human Rights. Incredible story. I'm probably guessing by now, of course, we've bent over and taken it hard, and we've obviously given them a house. But that's the point, really. There is a house for everyone. There is a home for everyone. Now, this is a story that actually made me smile and had a little bit of a giggle to myself, finding out that dolphins like to get high. Dolphins are seen as one of the most intelligent species on Earth besides ourselves, although of course we humans would say that. And extraordinary scenes we found out for a new documentary being made for the BBC called Dolphins Spy The Pod. I've got to go down this story really to show you and illustrate to you what actually is happening with these guys. I've seen a few other stories on the net, not really going into the details, so let me throw this at you. So what's actually happened is these young dolphins, the ones who are coming into maturity, they, like many teenagers, in fact, in our own society, like to experiment. I actually didn't. Maybe I missed out on that completely. But a lot of people do, and what they're doing, they come after the pufferfish. They grab it, and they squeeze it just enough that it starts to release its neurotoxin. And what has to happen, it has to have a bit of a narcotic effect. And the dolphin then appears to pass it round like puff puff pass. And it appears they've actually worked out the right amount of pressure required for the fish to release the neurotoxin. And after chewing on it a little bit, they pass it between each other, the next one does it, and they appear to enter like a trance-like state. This behaviour was captured for a new BBC series called Dolphins Spy The Pod. It was by their film producer called John Downer, and he had a sit-down interview with the guys over at the Sunday Times and spoke about it in some detail. And there's a couple of YouTube footage on it as well. In fact, there's probably over 900 hours of footage actually out there in the internet and in the world on dolphins in their natural habitat that he speaks about. But this is the first time they've ever actually seen this behaviour. And he remarks that, in fact, it reminded him when people were licking toads to get a buzz, and they appear to go into a bit of a daze afterwards. It says the dolphins, they float near the surface looking at their own reflection downwards. They start like twisting around, acting like they're high. And it actually appears to be a very natural thing for them to do. So perhaps we should look at ourselves and go, we're just dabbling in little narcotics, or we're playing around with hallucinogenics. It's not a bad thing. It's perhaps a very natural thing, because our natural cousins in the water are doing exactly the same thing. People want to get a bit of a buzz going on, and they want to see how it changes their perspective of the world they see around them. So in fact, it's probably not, a bad thing that humans are doing this as well. It's clearly reflected in the animal kingdom. This was also found to happen in species of monkeys as well, who, out in the forest, they found millipedes. But in fact, when they rolled them around in the dust and on the ground, they tend to curl up into a ball as part of their defense mechanism, and they actually would release cyanide. And of course, cyanide, inhaled in very short doses actually also is a hallucinogenic. And these monkeys had also found the right amount of prodding and poking and rolling around to get just the right hit that it doesn't kill them. And I can only imagine how many times they played with it and it went a bit too far. You have to wonder why humans also give catnip to their kitties. You know, catnip drives cats like crazy. I've seen them roll around the floor, paw at invisible birds, jumping in the window, and making strange moving sounds like they're having some kind of hallucination. But, catnip, of course, comes from a herb, the Petacataria, which actually is related to oregano in spearmint. It's actually quite commonly found across the United States, typically next to roads, oddly enough. And it contains an active molecule that is called nepelectone. See, I can say that almost nepelectone, that is believed to mimic the cat's pheromones. And apparently it binds to the olfactory receptors, and it produces the catnip's really unique response. It's really weird because I can remember my own cats having this stuff, and sometimes they'd get aroused, sometimes they'd start humping the toys, they'd start jumping on the sides and looking at mirrors, and wonder what's going on. It looks like they're having a state of euphoria, and then some completely sedate them, and the cat's like laying on their back like they're high on something. And clearly, humans give animals this to get high. Yeah, they tell other people who are humans who get high that having hallucinogenics is a really bad thing. Don't have magic mushrooms because this kind of thing's going to happen. Don't do this. You can't do that because you're going to get high. It's going to have damaging effect. Clearly, we like giving cats catnip, and we like watching the fun effects, the fact that they're having some kind of trip. Now it's seen that monkeys do the same thing. It's seen that dolphins do the same thing. Perhaps in smaller doses with humans, actually, it is a very good thing. Did I really just say that? Really? No, I didn't. You didn't hear me say humans should try hallucinogenics. Nope, not at all. Now, something came into my mind while I was actually recording this show. And I've added it into the show, although you wouldn't know it, I've added it in as the sound clip into the contents. Now, what this is, really, I was trying to work out, in the conversation I had with Sylvia, how do governments know or get the facts of how much people trust each other? You know, if you look at American politics in particular, there's polls everywhere. There's polls, they've dropped 4 points, gained 4 points, 6 points down. I don't really understand that. What polls are they talking about? And I thought, how does that work in the UK? Because we don't really see too many of these polls at all, really. You hear about studies, and, 55% of people say this, and 66% of people say this. I don't really know where that information or facts come from. So what do I decide to go and do? I decide to go and find out. And this is what I found out. In the UK, we actually gain our information from a company called the Elderman Trust Barometer. Now, you can go to the website, and I'll tell you what it is. It's called elderman.com, and this apparently is a global study organisation designed to work out how people trust their governments, their states, their industry, their media, and so on. They appear to run like polls all the time. So I was intrigued about their statistics. So let me just read a few to you about what they've discovered over the last few years. And I was quite intrigued by some of the data they collect and why it's collected. I mean, everything on here from customer engagements to integrity to purpose to products to governmental operations, trust of the media, trust of organisations, government levels of trust and security, and the perceptions of the people upon them. This is a company worth watching, perhaps out of terror of knowing how much they know about the zeitgeist of today's world. This is one of the companies where governments gain their statistics from. So let's just have a look at some of the statistics I was looking at earlier today. In fact, let's start with having a look at the Elderman Trust Index. This is charting how much trust a society has, percentage-wise, of its own government. In 2011, the global percentage of how much people trusted their government was 55%. Let's look at where, say, the core countries, which obviously we know a lot about, are placed on this gauge. In fact, the most globally trusted government, the country with the most citizens who trusted their government, in fact, in 2011, was Brazil. 80% of their company believed and trusted their government. In fact, also found within that was the United Arab Emirates with 78%, Argentina was 62%, Mexico was 69%. And where was the UK on this at this time? The UK was actually one of the most distrusted countries by its own citizens at just 40%. 40 points, that's right. 40% of the UK government had trust in their government, Now, moving forward to say 2012, it's on here. Worldwide Global Trust was at 51. China, as at that time, was at 76. So 76% of China believed in their government. UK had actually creeped up at that point to 41% of the country believing in the government. And in 2013, guess where the UK has moved to? Yes, the UK has actually gone up by a number of points. So, as I said, in 2011, the UK trust level in the government was at 40%. Now, in 2013, the government trust is at 53%. That considered to be neutral section. So we've actually moved up plus 12 points. I guess this is, I wouldn't say it's biased in the sense that I have not seen statistics of who it is they surveyed, but apparently they took a cross-section of lots of different people across the countries. And one worrying measure on this, in fact, is China. In fact, as I said, 2011, Brazil was trusted 80% by its own government, and then in 2013, Brazil is most knocked completely from the top right into almost distrusting, that 55% of the country believes in the government, and China is at 80%. That's right, 80% of Chinese people believe their government is doing the right thing. That, I guess, is down to the fact that the government owns state media, it owns every outlet, and if you speak up, you tend to be executed. So yeah, you better believe them, or else. And leading on from that trust, that drew my attention, that study did earlier, and you can find that on elderman.com, so please go and check that out. I also found another public opinion site as well. That is a business-orientated webpage. It's called YouGov, and What the World Thinks of Percentages and Statistics in the UK. I found this website to be really, really interesting. Let's check out this article here, Trust in the Media. This was written by Hannah Thompson, and it was published on the 14th of November. And let's have a quick look down here at the statistics of this particular article. The UK public still sees traditional media, such as the TV and radio, as the most trustworthy media outlets. The first public broadcasting service UK Trust Report has also found, as the American TV channel launches in the UK, the poll of 1,108 adults and 1,095 US adults have found that this summer's phone hacking scandal has resulted in media mistrust amongst the public. And here are the statistics. 64% of the UK adults saw that TV is the most trusted outlet. 58% of people said the same about radio. 38% of people who were interviewed trusted newspapers, and 25% thought the same about magazines. Websites have a higher level of trust at 55%, and blogs were trusted by 1 in 10 people. And Facebook and Twitter were only trusted as much as 15% of the UK as a place to get trusted media content. Future trust. Looking to the future of people's trust in media, TV also comes out at the top in the UK, which is expected to reach 35%. In the public in the US, it's 41%. And this is followed in the UK by a decrease to 27% and radio 21%. And disheartening in fact, also trending statistically, is that 1 in 5 UK adults are less likely to be consulting a newspaper for their current affairs in the future. As we're now clearly seeing a trend towards people no longer using what is recognised media. But are we also seeing that a trust in alternative media? Perhaps. That certainly isn't something that's mentioned on there. Although, to say alternative media is that independently published magazines and documentation, not to mention the likes of websites as well. Whether that be like UK Collapse as your regular source, or whether that's ATS, or whether that's Natural News, Infowars, Prison Planet, UK Column, and the ilk goes on. We're certainly seeing, user-wise, coming there. That's their news stories. And that's where you see the more influential stories coming out of. Say Russia Today, they obviously have a nice link in with the independent media. Indie media, for instance, is another good example. So could this in fact be another circular reason why they want to bring in all the UK media under the Leveson thing? How it's all going to be watched by an overseer company run out of the government to make sure all the information going out there publicly is all the same. Is this perhaps the reason why? Because they statistically know that everyone now is getting their information from alternative sources. Unfortunately, those sources are also just opinions, and the story's never quite straight. I mean, how many times have you read a story, you look at another story, then you look at the sources, and it's three completely different stories? The official one being something quite mundane, or something quite more interesting, and it's been, ramped up or even ramped down. Yeah, I think there's your real story behind all that. Okay, I think you've absorbed a lot of knowledge right now, and you're going to need a moment to pause, to absorb, and to take it all in. So we're going to be calling for a break right now. On the other side of our break, we're going to be joined by Sylvia Wicks, who's going to be coming on to talk all about Isaac Asimov's predictions of what he made back in 1964, of what they predicted the world would be like in 2014. We're going to have a look if they are right, and which ones have come to fruition. Also, we're going to be talking about how to sign your name without assuming responsibility and signing your rights away, as well as looking at the Fortean stories that have caught our eye in the news and what's made us laugh at the strange, weird and wonderful tales that have happened in the world. So stay with us and join us back on the other side.
There is just one other thing that I can say about creativity. There are certain conditions which do make it more likely that you'll get into the open mode and that something creative will occur. More likely. You can't guarantee anything will occur. You might sit around for hours, as I did last Tuesday, and nothing. Zilch. Butt kiss. Not a sausage. Nevertheless, I can at least tell you how to get yourselves into the open mode. You need 5 things. 1, space. 2, time. 3, time. 4, confidence. And 5, a 22-inch waist. Sorry, my mind was wandering. I'm getting into the open mode too quickly. Instead of a 22-inch waist, read humour.
Welcome back to the rabbit hole that is reality. My name is Kristian Lander, and I'm joined here on this half of the show where it always gets a little strange, a little dark, and a little more twisted with Sylvia Wicks, and we're going to be talking about Isaac Asimov's predictions that he made back in 1964 in regards to how he envisioned the world in 50 years' time. And now, of course, the year is 2014, so let's see how close he was indeed. Also, we're going to be talking about how to sign your name and make sure you retain your full rights and the privileges when it comes to writing them so. And then we go into the dark twisted corner, that is the Fortean archives, and we will see what strange, funny and true stories have caught our eye recently. So, Sylvia, over to you.
Isaac Asimov was a prolific science fiction author. He wrote the Foundation trilogy, which is the basis of most modern science fiction. He was also a professor of biochemistry. In 1964, in the World Fair, Isaac Asimov was asked what he thought would be standard within the next 50 years. Since we're coming up to the 50-year mark of what he thought would be standard, let's just go down and have a look at what he envisioned. Gadgetry will continue to relieve mankind of tedious jobs. Kitchen units will be devised that will prepare auto meals, heating water and converting it to coffee, toasting bread, frying, poaching, scrambling eggs, grilling bacon, and so on. Breakfast will be ordered the night before to be ready by a specified hour the next morning.
Well, that sounds pretty untrue. I mean, can we do that now? We do have auto meals. You have microwave meals that you spoke about earlier. You can heat water. We have kettles. Did they have kettles in 1964? Yeah, I guess they would have done. Heating water and converting it to coffee. The alchemy of the kitchen. Breakfast to be ordered the night before? Well, I guess at hotels maybe, but not in the home. I mean, you don't go to your kitchen unit and go, okay, breakfast is at 8 and I want bacon, eggs and toast. That'll be done for you.
No, we don't have that one quite yet.
Next one.
The next one was that communications will become sight and sound, and you will see as well as hear the person that you telephone. The screen can be used not only to see the people you call, but also for studying documents and photographs and reading passages from books.
See, when I see that, it talks very much like a smartphone of today.
So I was thinking, or that Kindle that's reading passages from books. You have digital books now.
Well, yeah, I mean, studying documents, photographs, that's something we now see on a day-to-day basis with modern-day smartphones. So yeah, he was pretty much spot on with that one.
He's also right about the sight and sound, because obviously now we have the ability to video call people.
You know, again, that's from your smartphone as well. So again, you can be anywhere in the world and have a video call conference with someone. I think most people actually don't. Most people have a smartphone and don't use video call function. It's really interesting. Google Hangouts, you know, all those kind of video conferencing stuff, where you can see and you can. And in fact, in Google Hangouts is a really good example because you can participate in documents while you're still talking to the person and still seeing them on a camera. So, in my view, Google Hangout really is the antithesis of what he was talking about, really.
Yeah, I'd say so. Skype as well, because you can see the people that you were talking to, all the people that you were talking to in a conference call, as well as send people over links or talk to them through the messaging system. Men will continue to withdraw from nature in order to create an environment that will suit them better.
Men, in fact, have withdrew from nature. We've chosen to destroy nature and for our own technology to keep us in our own homes. And
we've withdrawn into our cities now.
Yeah, withdrawn. I was actually talking really regarding the house, our home, our security. Now we have everything around us. You can get your food ordered in. You know, you can get your shopping done for you. You know, you can get someone else to pick it for you at the depot centre and delivered to your house. There's no real reason why you actually have to get out of your house other than for social reasons and to go to work. And heck, some people don't even leave the house to go to work.
Some people don't even have to leave the house for social reasons because they can just call people.
Xbox Live, whatever. It says also that by 2014, electroluminescent panels will be in common use on the walls and ceilings. Now, I did see at the Microsoft Technology Conference last year, as in 2013, that were effectively walls in your house that had projections on them that were Kinect orientated. That's where you said what you wanted to have on the wall, you would speak, and the walls would change to a video screen. Or it was called Microsoft Home. That was it, the Home project. And that's what they were showing off, was the fact that your walls, in fact, will be luminescent panels. So yes, that technology has indeed come to fruition, but it's not in everyone's home right now.
Not just yet, no.
But by 2014...
It might be. Robots will neither be common nor very good in 2014, but they will be in existence.
Well, they certainly are in existence. I mean, there was a story I read on prisonplanet.tv yesterday that was showing off the fact that machine gun, not bipedal, but you know, the tank wheeled robots actually looked a bit like Johnny Five out of Short Circuit.
Right.
They were on being used in Detroit. They were obviously walking the streets.
Oh, they actually patrol it?
Yeah, with soldiers. It was like, you fucking what? But yeah, so you literally have all the robots. I think someone was still in control of them, a bit like a drone.
I think wouldn't a drone technically be a robot as well, a flying one?
Well, no, because they're still controlled by the people at the present time, but they have been, quite often in the documentation that's been leaked over the last year, you have seen the fact that they are talking about autonomous drones and making the decision to kill people and to attack, you know, to take the decision off the humans to say, well, it's a computer decision. So therefore there's no blame and stuff. I've seen quite a bit of that stuff over the last year or so. So yeah, I mean, they're kind of on the ball with this one. They're neither common, not everyone has a robot, although...
Talking of autonomous vehicles, Isaac Asimov also envisioned that there would be vehicles with robot brains in the future, ones that you could set for particular destinations. We do have satellite navigation right now, which is where you have your GPS in your car and you set your destination, then your sat-nav in your car will obviously tell you which way to go. Last year, Google showed off its Google car, which, when combined with this technology, will quite easily be able to do that without there being any human input. Won't it, Kristian?
Yes, I mean, the idea is you could put the postcode in, for instance, and the Google car, you know, your car, will drive to that destination under its own piloting, effectively. But obviously, the Google car really was the first generation that's shown that is actually possible. I still think the idea people aren't comfortable with that yet, but it is shown to be done. So yes, he was right on the ball with that one. He talks also of wall screens that will replace the ordinary television set. Transparent cubes making it possible to have the appearance of three-dimensional viewing. Now, as you know, if you go down to the cinema right now, you can watch films in IMAX. You have TVs that are in a house that are three-dimensional. Absolutely spot on. You do indeed have 3D TV in the home. And, you know, projectors the same. We've got a HD projector here. It beams on our wall. Well, there are 3D projectors that are out there too.
There
So
certainly are.
So yeah, he's on the ball with that one. This again is from 50 years ago.
This next one we seem to have already exceeded. Isaac Asimov said that the world's population will be 6.5 billion. The population of the US will be 350 million. Later, he warns that if population growth continues unchecked, all the Earth will be a single choked Manhattan. By AD 2450, and society will collapse long before that.
He then also went on to state in the same sentence that therefore there will be worldwide propaganda at this point and drive to favour birth control by rational and humane methods, and by 2014 this will undoubtedly have already taken serious effect. I certainly think we are in the grips of that. I mean, you see China's one-child policy, you see things like Epicite, and Microsoft's planning. I say not Microsoft's planning, double just Bill Gates, and his family planning, the eugenics movement taking hold of a lot of society. You see that
He's certainly a big part of that.
You see the likes of Monsanto, you see the likes of Nestle, taking control of food supply. You see the medication that's now out there and the forced vaccines and so on, and the terrible effects it's having on the human body. I think we're deep into the propaganda and the rational and humane methods of birth control.
And it's no surprise as we've already gone over that by at least 1 billion.
Yeah.
At least.
I think the last check, to my knowledge, it was like 7.2 billion people.
As a result, farms will keep up with great difficulty because of the increasing demand of such a high population.
Well, and this is exactly what we've got right now. We're now finding we're having to have factory farms, manufacturing factories, putting stuff out there. Even the meat, it's now factory driven because it has to be done that way. Fish factories.
Yeah, they're having to make fish farms in order to prevent the depletion of food from the oceans, because if we have no food in the oceans and we don't have any reserves, then we're not going to have any food left, just because of our increasing population. Of course, that doesn't just go for the food that we've got in the oceans, it also goes for everything that we've got on land. We're increasingly having to intensely farm animals and plants in order to meet demands of such a growing population.
A really good example from that would be how the soil, in fact, is changing. Across America, it's actually quite a big thing. There's quite a few discussions about it I've seen online. They're saying that the soil actually is now almost depleted of nutrients and minerals in certain areas because it's now been over-farmed. And there's certainly areas of Africa where that's actually happened, and it's devastated villages and towns, how they can't grow any more crops.
The Aztecs did the same thing. They over-farmed their land so much they actually created their own desert because they'd taken so much of the nutrients out of the soil, nothing can grow anymore.
Well, when you put so much time into building a structure as your city centre, and then of course you farm outwards, you eventually get to a point where how far do you have to go
in order to get any food?
Yeah, and essentially your entire culture either dies out and moves on. Although in their case, what they did, they literally killed 80,000 people in the course of 3 days, thinking that food would come back.
Of course, that didn't work.
No, that didn't work. Silly people. And he also says down here in Asimov's predictions, by the year 2014, this is really interesting, because this really talks about technological unemployment. There will be very few routine jobs that can be done better by a machine than by a human being. Mankind will be therefore serviced by machine tenders. Schools will be orientated also to this direction. High school students will be taught the fundamentals of computer technology, and they should become proficient in binary arithmetic and trained to the perfection in the use of computer languages. I wish that was more the case, but it's certainly technological unemployment is a big thing right now. Companies are stripping back people in favour of technologies which are easy to maintain, because that way you only need 1 or 2 people to maintain them, as opposed to the workforce.
Say 10 people to actually have operated it beforehand.
Okay, a really good example would be supermarkets. Asda and Tesco revealed this year that by next year they want to have replaced half of their checkout staff with the horrible self-scan machines.
Of course, with self-scan machines, you only need 1 person in order to tend to 4, or 6 in Asda's case.
6, that's 14.
1 person for 14?
Yeah.
That's crazy!
Yeah, you should see how much goes out the door. Anyway, yeah, security aside, and they have these hybrid checkouts, which are effectively full-size checkouts that on one side are like a normal checkout to a customer, and obviously the person operates them. But then when it's quieter, they just become normal self-scan trolleys where a trolley could go through on the same side, and the customer would just bleep it through themselves. But they were showing off this arc thing. It kind of goes over the checkout like an arch. So you put all your stuff on the conveyor belt with the barcodes facing upwards yourself, and then obviously once it goes to the end, it all totals it for you. And you never needed an operator to begin with, unless of course you're buying things that are age restricted or they are
have a security tag.
Yeah, exactly. And we're now seeing that is now what's happening in the supermarket level. Even the most basic jobs that are available for people to have, they're now becoming redundant.
They're being squeezed out by machines.
Or, of course, they go to China. Or countries who can do the same job for cheaper. I mean, when was the last time you actually bought a jumper that didn't fall apart?
A while ago?
Yeah.
A long while ago.
And it's not the people, in all fairness, it's not the people who made it. They work their fucking asses off 16, 18 hours a day. I'll never put a person on that who's working their ass off to provide for their family. But of course, they're made in the lowest quality level.
The lowest quality threads.
Yes, because they're designed to fail. So you buy another one. You think in every season we have to buy a new jumper or new trousers because they're falling apart, the seams are cracking and so on. They're just designed to last as quick as possible, so you buy the next one at full price. Televisions, equipment, all the same.
Yeah, notice how your mechanical stuff, it always fails just after the warranty runs out.
It's supposed to. It's supposed to happen, so you make sure you buy the next one. But of course, then we're going into planned obsolescence. But with technological employment, which is exactly what he's talking about there, and that is what you're seeing a heavy increasing amount of jobs that can be done by computers. Now, of course, in the vision of the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist movement, who are in that direction, that's exactly how we should be going. But that free time should be allowed to increase your education. In that free time, you should be allowed to develop yourself into other areas where you can become a proficient member of society in other ways. But what we're not seeing is we're seeing companies hoard the money they've got extra for themselves.
Yeah, rather than helping to develop more in that direction.
No, yeah, we're just seeing companies actually sucking it in for themselves, and those people they don't need. Who cares? Who cares? We're not seeing that way. Regards to people learning about technology languages, it's a very strange one, isn't it? Because you find that computer language appears to still be a very specialised subject. You can learn, like at school, you might learn HTML. I think you do websites at school. I think my son said he was doing websites.
I remember doing websites, but I don't think I went into the language.
So you might do HTML, but it's highly unlikely you're going to do Java, C++, Python, and so on, and all the key languages.
No, you'd have to go into advanced courses to do that.
Colleges, universities are starting to get into specific areas on there.
This next one is exactly what we're talking about right now. He said that mankind will suffer badly from the disease of boredom.
Yeah, so with technological unemployment, you actually create people who are out of work. You need to fill that with something. It says here that it was a disease spreading more widely each year and growing in intensity. No, people are desperate right now. But it says people will suffer from
serious mental, emotional and sociological consequences, and that psychiatry will become the most important medical specialty. Now, we're already going towards that, I'd say.
Well, yeah, you're seeing more and more people, I saw it in The Independent today. More people are now on anxiety drugs and have depression issues than ever. People are bored, and they're creating these psychological disorders because their brain wants to do something. They want to do something with their lives. Things like money, poverty, time, of course, it holds them back from being that creative or taking those steps to alleviate the boredom.
The most glorious single word in the vocabulary will have become work in our society of enforced leisure.
Yeah.
I'd say that's the other way around. I'd say it's become the most glorious word because we're living in a society of enforced labour.
Yeah, we don't have the leisure at all.
No, we certainly don't. They want us to work all day and have virtually no leisure time.
Do you remember early last year, and it could have even been 2012 before that, David Cameron said in a discussion, I think it's that Thomas Mars show.
I think I know where you're going with this.
He said that if there could be a drug to have less sleep,
then people could work more often. I remember that. Yeah, he said that people should have, was it 5 hours sleep, I think, in order to be more productive.
No, Andrew Marshall, the opposite. He was on there. Yeah, people should have less sleep to have a more fulfilling, productive day, or something like that. He said. I remember going, "You fucking what?"
You're What, deprive people of sleep so that you can get more work out of them?
Yeah, it's the complete opposite, isn't it? It's the opposite.
Absolutely, totally opposite.
So how, of those then predictions, he actually got a lot of them correct.
Yeah, it did, actually, looking through that. And some of them will become correct very soon. Actus me invito factus, non es meus actus. An act done by me against my will is not my act. Now this next part we're going to have to go through pretty quickly because we're already 52 minutes into the episode. Now what do you think a signature means? I'll tell you right now that when you sign something, no matter what they say, it means that you accept liability, and if you don't read and agree to everything you sign, you're making a big mistake. So the question then is, how do you sign your name and maintain your rights? I've heard that adding under duress or all rights reserved to a signature when signing a document will maintain our inherent human rights. And while this could work just as well, the proper Latin way to sign under duress is to add a VC before your signature. Now VC means vis compulsiva, which means in Latin under duress. And Black's law cites the definition of vis compulsiva as compulsive force or force exerted by menaces or terror.
You will find there's actually very scant information across the web on VC, visa compulsiva. But if you know where to look, you'll find it's a very important piece of information. The bar, as in when you're at the court, at certain key points in a court case, for instance, the bar members want you to sign documents. And why? Because your signature actually works a bit like vocalized consent. It's legally interpreted as your agreement, as surely as an obligation, as well as the ability to perform and waive other rights. Do you have to sign? Well, no, not really. And no, you don't. And in many cases, it's designed in a way that is interpreted as dishonour, and you can invoke their powers of attorney against you and declare you a delinquent, incompetent, and send you to prison anyway. This is why you've heard of people who refuse to sign documents, and then when they enter prison they're actually treated worse than other serious criminals, due to the way that their ignorance of their own rights. So this is why this is important to learn. Visa compulsiva. It's before you sign anything under duress, in order to not be unfairly determined as dishonoured or incompetent. You may lawfully initial in large letters VC where you sign, and then sign your name after, and always after. VC stands for visa compulsiva, as we just said, that is under constraint or under duress. This is normally sufficient for any document that you've been forced to bear witness to the fact that you've signed, and it was under duress, under stress. Now I think that also in some locations and in some prisons, as this knowledge starts to grow, it's possible the law enforcement officials may start to reject such signatures, adding more threat and force on a person to sign without using the VC. It is your choice, remembering that if you are allowing such criminal intimidation and torture to prevail, and you do sign without protest, and the system can simply lie and state that you made the signature of your own free will. There is another way, of course, certainly if they start tearing up your paperwork and demanding you do it again, because this is part of their own canon law, natural law that independents all their own statutes and regulations they have created to put you in this position in the first place. So this is the use of ellipses. When there's a threat of intimidation or outright rejection of lawful protest that is too great, then a second and equally valid method of signing under protest is actually permitted in court and in law, namely the use of 3 full stops before your name, followed by your signature. This is called the ellipsis. It indicates that legally there was a form of words you wanted to state but were unable to due to some event because of threat or coercion. Thus, at the earliest opportunity, the ellipsis can be revealed that it can be stated you intended to write VC but were prevented to, nullifying any agreement that you make after that. So this will be of interest to the author, and there have been many cases where VC has been used to sign a document. And I will post the links below so you can feel free to go and investigate them yourself. So visa compulsiva, it's in Black Law's Dictionary, 1st edition. It's civil Old English law, compulsive force that has been exerted to compel another to do something against their will, against their act, force exerted by menace or terror. So this, every time you are forced or you are asked to sign an agreement, or you are forced and asked to sign a document, make sure you sign with the initials VC beforehand, or 3 dots beforehand, and you will maintain your rights and your legal standing of your own free will. And we finish off our episode today, hopefully on time. We're going to aim for the 1 hour mark exactly. In the Peak District on Christmas Day, they happened to have found 2 people who were on the way walking for an area not too far from us. In fact, this is over in Derbyshire, the Peak District. A hole estimated to be around 130 feet deep and 160 feet wide, literally, appeared next to the footpath in the village of Furlow in Derbyshire. A local caver says it has actually been getting bigger and bigger since he first spotted it during his walk on Christmas Day. This also appeared on the BBC. It's quite interesting also, as there's 2 other similar holes that have appeared around half a mile away back in the 1970s. So it's not really a new thing, but it's kind of strange. I mean, do you think it's... And there is a dam there called Mill Dam Mine. There is actually a much greater depth than the bottom of the sinkhole. Its collapse does not appear to be related, and it won't have a direct impact on that mine at all. But it is interesting the fact that an entire area has just collapsed into the ground for no apparent reason at all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's got more to do with the torrential rain that we've had, though. It's probably moved the soil. There was probably a great big hole underneath it, and it's just moved it just enough for everything else to collapse into it.
Yeah, that certainly happens. I mean, that certainly does.
A Brighton resident has discovered a vortex to another dimension. It's complete with a giant snake.
Now, could this in fact be a prelude to an invasion of Doctor Who-like proportions, as it is of course Christmas? But this in fact could be something more serious, or something just completely fucking ridiculous. On the website called Fix My Street, which is obviously set up by the council, where people can report X amount of stuff happening to their streetlights and bad paving, and tarmac break cracks, etc. The person actually posted on there where it says, "I was walking my Assen's Victor, a toy breed of dog, around the Hanover area of Brighton, when I noticed there was a wormhole, a vortex, that opened up on Montreal Road. On closer inspection, it appears to be some kind of portal to another place, maybe another dimension. I would have investigated further, but I was concerned that my little dog could be sucked into it. Is it meant to be there?" At first I'm trying to say this seriously. At first I believed it might be part of the Brighton Festival, and I believe it can be a hazard to the general public. I look forward to her response. I can hear you giggling. It's so good.
It's just the fact that they've written it so blandly. It's like, it's not supposed to be there. There seems to be this weird portal in the middle of the road.
I went past it the other day and it seems to have gotten worse. It's now emitting an unsettling yellow light, and a large snake appears to be emerging from the wall. So we contacted Brighton and Hove County Council, and they says they wouldn't be following up the claim. I had to go and ask them. I had to. I still think the Fortean story of the day isn't a story that's in any Fortean section at all of any website or any kind of weird news. This actually is mainstream news because it's right down to the paranoia we have about paedophiles. There is an absolute paranoia about paedophiles in this country, and this story just, it makes you want to laugh. I think George Collin will be laughing his ass off at this shit.
I think he would. He'd love this if he saw this.
So Sylvia, please read the headline. It's just too damn funny.
The headline is, "Swimming pool is evacuated after a prosthetic leg is mistaken for a paedophile." A prosthetic leg. How do you mistake a limb for an entire human being?
It wasn't even attached to anybody.
And then assume that that is a paedophile.
Oh, it's just too fucking funny. Oh, it's just too damn funny. Where did I see this? It was on the Huffington Post. And a few of the stories I've been catching up on it as well. Teachers responded swiftly by removing the 8 and 9-year-olds from the premises at Larkfield Community Centre in Auschwitz, Kent. It turned out to be a false alarm. A leg was actually detached and was left behind by a disabled man who was going for a swim. It was in a fucking cubicle, right? It probably was laying on the floor.
But still,
How did it instantly go from being a false...
There's a leg on the floor.
To being... There's a fucking paedophile in the kids' changing room.
He's trying to watch them.
He's behind a fucking cubicle door. What was he watching with? A periscope over the top? It's just...
He was watching with the camera on his toe.
I don't... his fucking prosthetic leg in this case. It's just too damn funny, guys. This is the rabbit hole that is reality. My name is Kristian Lando. I've been joined today
by Sylvia Wicks.
And this has been episode 17. Join us next time on the rabbit hole that is reality. Find me on Twitter at DefineChristian.
And me at Sylvia Dragoon.
Rabbit hole that is reality.co.uk is the place to be to find all the episodes we have produced so far. Find us on the likes of iTunes and YouTube. Heck, just search us in Google, you'll find us. syndicated across many different podcast hubs as well. Please give us some feedback, please let us know what you think of the show, and where we're going. Good night.